Can you still hear the static crackle and that magical beat before your friend's voice answered back from a block away? If you grew up in the 1980s, walkie-talkies weren't just plastic toys. They were your ticket to endless backyard adventures, neighborhood secrets, and imaginative missions that only you and your closest pals knew about. The world felt bigger then, yet somehow safer, with the comfort of that chunky antenna in your grip and a voice echoing through the cinnamon-scented summer air. Every press of the bright orange button was a pulse of excitement, whether you were planning a treehouse raid, whispering late-night hideouts, or just checking in before dinner. Did you ever line up with your buddies back to back and say "over" as if you were on a secret operation straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon? Let's take a journey back to those crackly airwaves where every word felt important and every call could spark a new adventure just around the corner. Are you ready to tune in and rediscover the joy those compact radios brought to our childhood days? Long before walkie-talkies became a playground staple, their journey started in a very different world, one of battlefield strategies, heavy-duty equipment, and the pressing need to stay connected over long distances. The story begins in the tumultuous 1940s when portable two-way radios were introduced as crucial military tools. Developed by engineers like Alfred J. Gross and Donald L. Hings, these original walkie-talkies, nicknamed handy-talkies, were bulky, box-shaped devices issued to Allied troops in World War II. Imagine soldiers huddled together, voices crackling through primitive static as they coordinated movements under cover of darkness. It was a far cry from the lightweight gadgets we'd later sneak under our pillows, but it set the essential foundation for what was to come. After World War II, walkie-talkies slowly migrated from military fields to the civilian world. In the 1950s and 60s, they were still considered sophisticated, almost futuristic technology. Police departments, firefighters, and even outdoor enthusiasts used heavy, metal-cased versions. For the average American child, though, these were distant, out-of-reach contraptions, more like props you'd see in a Buck Rogers cereal than something you'd actually own. But then something changed as the country moved into the vibrant, inventive dawn of the 1980s. The pace of technological advancement quickened. Factories in Japan and the US began mass-producing smaller, less expensive versions, ones that could easily fit in a child's hands. You might not believe this, but the earliest kid-friendly walkie-talkies were sometimes bundled with adventure sets or comic book subscriptions, transforming them from a professional's tool into a child's treasure. Remember the thrill of flipping through a toy store catalog, eyes wide at the glossy photos of walkie-talkie sets promising real radio communication, just like the pros? For many, that was the first time the dream of owning your own secret line felt real. It's easy to forget now, but the world was much quieter in the early 1980s. House phones with cords still rooted families to the kitchen wall, and personal computers were only beginning to flicker into suburban existence. The idea that you could carry a voice right in your pocket or backpack, stuffed between baseball cards and peanut butter sandwiches, was nothing short of miraculous. But here's a surprising fact. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, actually reserved special radio frequencies just for citizens' use, what would become known as the Family Radio Service, or FRS. While these rules would become more defined in the 90s, even in the 80s, there were unlicensed toy radio bands that kids and hobbyists could use, sparking a wave of innovation. Want to guess how many channels those first affordable units offered? Sometimes only one. There was no chance of switching frequencies if someone else was chatting nearby. Half the fun and half the frustration was picking up snippets of another kid's plans or a neighbor's late-night call. Did you ever accidentally intercept your brother's super-secret baseball lineup, or the frustrated voice of a parent trying to call someone inside the house? There's a special kind of magic in how these walkie-talkies bridged past and present. They were, in a sense, a child's first taste of real autonomy, a passport beyond the driveway, with just enough range to let troublemaking rascals and cautious parents feel a new kind of freedom. Even though the toy versions of the 80s were far less powerful than their military ancestors, they captured the imaginations of an entire generation. The textures of the times, crackly static, stiff plastic casings, the reassuring click of a battery hatch, became woven into the very language of growing up. Ask yourself, where did you first test the range of your walkie-talkie? In a backyard fort, peeking over a wooden fence at a friend crouched in the neighbor's bushes, or maybe up in a bedroom window whispering across the nighttime breeze, certain your coded messages were reaching the farthest edge of the world. One more fun nugget. Some 1980s walkie-talkie sets came with a built-in Morse code button, a leftover nod to an even earlier era of radio communication. Few kids knew how to use it, but after a quick glance at the cryptic dot-dash chart, you might find yourself laboriously spelling out your best friend's nickname. Ever tried to decipher a message tapped out in impatience, one slow peep at a time? It's also fascinating to remember that early 80s walkie-talkies, for all their sprinkled technological wonder, still left a lot to the imagination. There was static, there were dead zones, and the sound quality would sometimes fade in and out like a ghostly voice telling tales from the past. And yet, didn't that unpredictability only add to their charm? The quirks and the bugs became part of the adventure, turning ordinary moments into heroic missions and every conversation into a whispered secret. The limits, in a way, fueled creativity. You learned to work around interference or just shout into the yard if all else failed. But of course, the walkie-talkie's evolution in the 80s was still only the beginning. As we moved forward through the decade, manufacturers pushed the boundaries of what these portable radios could do, making them louder, clearer, and, at times, almost indistinguishable from the real thing. The transformation of the walkie-talkie from a rare, expensive novelty into a must-have toy marked a cultural shift that would define a generation's idea of both play and connection. Tomorrow's world of instant messaging and pocket-sized smartphones was still a distant dream. For now, the click and hiss of a bright red or blue walkie-talkie was enough to make any afternoon burst with possibility. And as companies competed for the attention of America's youth, every new feature, every funny shape, every colorfully marketed box promised something just a little bit more thrilling than the last. But that's not all. Coming up, we'll delve into how the technology changed across the decade. What new features made kids' eyes light up? Which gadgets became instant classics? Get ready to tune in to a time when antennas stretched daringly toward the sky, and each upgrade meant new ways to surprise your friends. The next chapter of the walkie-talkie adventure was just getting started. As we bring our journey through the world of 80s walkie-talkies to a close, it's impossible not to smile at just how much those humble gadgets meant to us. We started with a look back at their roots, tracing their evolution from battle-tested military radios to the brightly colored companions that became staples of our childhood adventures. We remembered the thrill of flipping through toy catalogs, the excitement of unwrapping that long-anticipated box, and the satisfaction of clicking in fresh batteries, all set for the mission ahead. It's easy to forget just how revolutionary these simple devices felt. In a world before cell phones and Wi-Fi, they were a lifeline, not just to friends across the yard, but to a whole world of possibility fueled by our own imaginations. Whether you were plotting late-night escapades with a best friend or simply checking in from opposite ends of the block, those walkie-talkies gave every word an extra dash of urgency and importance. They taught us how to communicate creatively, to build code words and secret signals, to pause and listen for the telltale hiss before sending a message, often just to say, "Are you there?" The static-filled airwaves and the unpredictable range became part of their charm, adding an element of surprise and laughter to every conversation. At their core, these radios represented something we all longed for: connection. Not just the literal fuzzy link between two antennas, but the sense that with the push of a button, you could reach out and share part of your world with someone else. It was about more than technology. It was about friendship, about trust, and about the kind of memories that seemed to grow sweeter with each passing year. The unmistakable smell of warm batteries, the click of a plastic case, and the magic of a whispered secret traveling through the dusk air. These are threads in the tapestry of our childhoods, woven tightly alongside bike rides, backyard games, and those endless summer evenings that seemed to last forever. Looking back, it's remarkable how such a simple tool could spark so much creativity and togetherness. In an era where communication was anything but instant, those minutes spent listening for your friends' reply made the connection all the more meaningful. What was it about that static-filled moment after you pushed the talk button that made even a simple message feel like a momentous event? Do you remember the first time your walkie-talkie worked from farther than you thought, or the way your voice echoed back to you just on the edge of range? We'd love to hear about your adventures. What was your most memorable walkie-talkie mission, or the funniest moment you ever shared over those crackly channels? Share your stories in the comments, and let's keep those memories alive together. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you want to revisit more vintage treasures or relive the moments that made growing up in the 80s so unique. Share this with a friend, maybe the same one who held the other walkie-talkie all those years ago, and see what memories you can spark together after. All we might have moved on from clunky antennas and static-filled nights, but the joy of calling out to an old friend just to see if they're still out there, listening, never really fades away. Over and out until our next nostalgic adventure.